Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to Planet Marzipan, the Fish and Marillion podcast. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate.
Craig Houston.
Okay, well, welcome to Planet Marzipan. I am Mezza. I'm here with my good friend,
Craig.
and we have a rather different Planet Marzipan Meets episode this week because we are meeting Darren Newitt, who's not going to say hello. He's just going to be there.
You can say hello, you know.
Well, I've not done one of these before.
Not at all yet. But the other
I'm a
thing,
podcast virgin.
Darren is interviewing us for the Web UK magazine as well. So this should be rather interesting one way or another. But if you're hearing the Web magazine interview, that means it's been out a good few months ago. So you'll have seen it in print if you're a member of the Web UK. And if not, you'll hear it for the first time. So welcome to the podcast, Darren.
Well, welcome and thank you. And thank you also for agreeing to this interview. How's life in Marillion world today?
All right. It's where are we, Craig?
We're in October.
On the 14th of October. We've just come back from seeing Fish in Holland last week.
In Utrecht, which was good fun.
Fish. Today in particular, we interviewed Canda Craig a few months ago, and they're doing some reenactments of the Brave album. And their Manchester gig has been cancelled today and then hastily rearranged to Stoke-on-Trent in one of our friend Scott's venues. So that's all been going on today. What else?
Well, I caught you shared a link for Canda Craig for performing a bit of Brave, and I've got to say, it sounded pretty good.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I'm going to Lincoln, I think, next week. So, sorry, this week as we speak. But by the time everyone hears this,
It'll be months ago.
Yeah, no, it does sound good, doesn't it? But how's things in your world?
Good. I didn't expect to be doing a dual interview today. I thought I was going to be interviewing you. So,
Well, let's keep you on your toes.
Okay. So, as you know, as one of your regular listeners of the weekly podcast, Planet Marzipan, I was kindly asked by the wonderful Anne Bond from the Web UK, possibly as payback for nominating her for one of your episodes. And what a great episode that was.
She was lovely.
Yes. If I would mind interviewing you both about your show for the Web fanzine. So, to add to some perspective, and probably why I've been asked to do that, I've listened to every episode of yours so far and have found them to be enjoyable and interesting in equal measures. I usually try to tune into your show on a Tuesday morning on my commute to work, and if I don't get time for that, I often listen to on my lunchtime walk along the Birmingham canals with my earbuds in. It's quite a good way of tuning out world for an hour or so, and I really enjoy them. But anyway, but onwards. Now, as part of this interview, many of you will recognize, many people that haven't listened to your podcast will recognize your name from your contribution to the Web magazine and the convention quizzes, and in the days when you used to be part of the Cakey Boys teams, where you won all the quizzes every Marillion weekend. However, we're here to talk about Planet Marzipan today. So, to start things off, your podcast boasts to cover all things in the world of fish and Marillion. So, for the benefit of those who have not yet had the pleasure of catching one of your shows, perhaps you could summarise on what they might expect from a Planet Marzipan podcast.
Okay. Well, I'll have a go, and then Craig, you can chip in if I miss anything out. The premise of the show really was the conversations that we have in the pub before and after gigs. And Craig, for a long time, was sort of saying, we should do a podcast. We should do a podcast. And I was like, I don't think anybody's really going to have any interest in this. So we tried one. We tried one episode, which initially was just us two, I think, reviewing Misplaced Childhood, wasn't it, the first one?
Yep.
I
And
remember that.
we like. I mean, we're going to have to revisit Misplaced Childhood because we really didn't do it justice in a half hour. And
Definitely.
we talk about our. I mean, I'm a lot older than Craig, so I was around in the Fish days and saw them on all the tours really. So I can talk about seeing the band with the Fish lineup, and then Craig came on board with the H lineup. So we talk about our gig memories. We talk about what we think about the music, the album cover, what was happening in the charts at the time. Just reminisce about things. And I have to be honest, we're quite irreverent at times. There's an element of fun to the podcast. We don't take ourselves seriously. We have different opinions, and that's all cool. Everybody's opinion is valid. That's the point. And then we kind of branched out into talking to people who are part of Marillion World. So we've interviewed Mark Wilkinson, we've interviewed Lucy Jordash, we've interviewed Steve Hogarth and Ian Mosley and Steve Rothery so far, and lots of other people besides. Anne Bond, as you've said, Fraser Marshall. Help me out, Craig. Who else have we talked to?
We've just
Phil
as we're talking now, we've just Phil Brown, yeah, we've just done an interview with him last week, which will have been out long long
Yeah.
since then. But what we did as well with the pod is we know quite a lot of people in like Marillion World and the fan base and the web people and Lucy and everybody like that. And as more that's gone on, everybody's just wanted to join in. And I think it's good because we've got our perspective as well, and we've got a little of like fans' perspectives as well. And it it just it's just getting bigger and the net's getting wider. And
Yeah, we now don't really do any two-hander episodes. There's usually about 4 or 5 of us on each episode, so we've got lots of different
Yeah.
views
and a
and
massive waiting list.
who we've asked and have said yes. But yeah, I mean, it's basically that. If you go to the gigs or you go to the weekends, it's the conversations you have with your friends in the pub before and after the gigs. That's really what it is.
I think that really sums it up as I understand it. And well, I have to congratulate you both for reaching significant milestone. I think you're now over 60 episodes, and I understand you've also recently celebrated your 1 year anniversary.
Yep.
That must have felt like quite an accomplishment. Did you expect Planet Marzipan to run as long as this? And
You don't think too far in advance, but I have to thank you, Darren, because you kind of said your 50th episode's coming up. What are you going to do for it? So we had to move things around a bit, and we ended up with Steve Rothery for our 50th episode. That was as much by luck as judgment. We'd asked Steve and he'd said yes, but we moved all the episodes around, so we had Rothers on the 50th.
Cool.
We have another strand. We have our Planet Marzipan meets. We have where we review albums. We have a strand called Charting the Single, where we look at just mini pods, just discussing the singles. So to date, we've done the singles from Script and the singles from Fugazi and the singles
Yeah.
from Misplaced.
This place, yeah.
By the time this goes out, we may do more. And then also we've started to do pods on specific events. So we've got some talking to you today. We've got an episode that goes out tomorrow, which is our escapades in Holland going to see fish. But then for the next month after that, we've got 4 episodes about fear and All One Tonight. So we've got a bit of a theme. Lots of people, All One Tonight, the Royal Albert Hall was a fantastic night, and there's lots of people talking about that on the episodes that we've got.
Well, that was 7 years ago yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's time's flown, hasn't it? Yeah, it was 7 years
Yeah.
ago as we're speaking. But we've already interviewed Lucy and Georgina about the management side of the Royal Albert Hall, and we got a little bit of Ian. Ian came in at the end, Ian Mosley.
Cool.
Got our friends as well, our friends angle of, because it was a big, big day in Marillion fandom, wasn't it? Our band was playing the Royal Albert Hall.
A lot of apprehension for that, a lot of fan requests for them to play that venue, and to finally see it happen. There was a lot of anticipation, and a lot of people went to preparation and got dressed up in bow ties and suits and gowns. It was made and most people made a weekend of it.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
really special. And we've got episodes celebrating all that coming up. But
Fantastic.
And we've got episodes. We've done a couple of episodes on specific weekends, like Marillion weekends, and we'll have more of them up and coming as well. So, you try and cover as many different things in many different areas as possible. But the beauty is the way that we do it, we don't do it like linear. We're dot all over the place. So it
none
just
of it is chronological, is it?
no,
Apart from
no, quite, yeah.
singles is, but
Yeah,
nothing else.
charting the singles we do them in order, but everything else it's more of a case of like where do we fancy going this week or where do we fancy going this month and what's going to be interesting or what links with things and stuff. We've got the freedom to go all over the place and there's so many areas that we haven't even touched on or covered yet. So I think we've got a fair bit of material still to get before we even thinking about struggling for
I
episodes.
mean, we did an episode not too long ago about
Yeah.
the fish box sets, because they've come out recently and they're absolutely stunning. And we just talked about what we bought from the fish shop, the vinyl boxes and the CD boxes, and it's things like that. There's some more Marillion live releases coming up, that we will review, and we'll review them in depth. We'll give our thoughts on it and what we like about it and what could be better.
So Planet Marzipan apparently ranks quite highly in some of the podcast charts. Even knowing how dedicated the Fish and Marillion fan base can be to such things, this must have been hugely rewarding and possibly a surprise to see how popular it's been.
Possibly about it, Darren, a massive surprise.
It's yeah. I mean, what was it the other week? We're like in the Apple's music charts in Sweden were like number one or something like that.
I
It's
mean, that's
Like what?
incredible.
But
It's
it's
like what?
who the hell's listening to this in Sweden? Well, it's Steve Prest, isn't it? That's who we can't
It
find
is.
Steve who works in Sweden, but he can't
I
own
mean,
it.
what was it? That was it the other day? Or like in the top 100 in Pakistan or something like that. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, he's great. The fact that people are listening to it at all is fine by us. We've got into a routine of putting it out very early on a Tuesday morning. It actually goes out about
1 in the morning, isn't it?
20 past 1 in the morning. And to allow everything time to catch up, we kind of promote it on Facebook. So we have a Facebook group for Planet Marzipan, the Fish and the Marillion and Fish podcast. And we promote the new episodes on there.
Yeah.
But the Facebook group also is a good place for discussion. We're not competing with any of the other Facebook groups, but we talk about tribute band gigs, we talk about releases on there, and lots of the regular suspects chip in.
Well, I was going to ask you about that actually. I've got it here. You use Facebook to promote Planet Marzipan episodes as well as to get thoughts and insights in advance to an upcoming album review podcast. And you often read out some of these comments on your podcast, which is good. And I assume you find these quite positive in this kind of two-way interaction with your subscribers.
I think it's great. I really enjoy, we're getting lots and lots of feedback. We will tend to put in the Facebook group I'm using the inverted commas sign, what the homework is for this weekend in advance of
Yeah.
recording a show. And then we'll ask folks what they think of that release. And sometimes they agree with us, sometimes they really don't agree with us, but it's all valid, it's all good.
And then we get told off because every time we're kind of reviewing something or talking about something, somebody hasn't got something, so they're having to put their hands in their pockets and they're costing them money because they think, oh, that sounds great, I'm going to be buying that.
We've got one of our friends who says we've cost them a fortune in plugging all the gaps in his collection. So, hello, Kieran.
Well, you reviewed the Suits Deluxe from Fish, and I realised that one slipped me by, and I hadn't realised I hadn't got it, and I went to get it, and it wasn't available, and you couldn't get it for love nor money. It wasn't available on eBay or Discogs, and then one came up about a month ago, and I sold for like 90 quid or something like that. But thankfully, Fish has re-released it, and I've got a copy possibly in my door box as we speak. So I'm waiting for that to catch up on the 3 discs on that. So yeah, thanks, guys.
So
It's a
we apologize to your bank manager.
really good set as a suits one. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you touched on it just briefly before, with the podcast success. Um, how far spread is your subscription base around the world? Do you find it concentrated mainly to the UK or in English countries or wider?
Uh, it's
UK,
No?
Germany,
it's predominantly UK, and America's our second biggest market.
yeah.
And then it's mainly around Europe, but we do have listeners like all around the world. And it's bizarre some of the countries, like even like Iran and places like that, where you've got numbers in, you're thinking, okay.
But so you said that you've got had a lot of requests from fans to be on your show, and that's great. But obviously, with everything coming in and the close knit circle you've had on already, how do you decide who new to bring in on an episode to talk about an album or a show, for example?
Sometimes it's about our availability. We both this year had significant changes in our employment, and that's impacted on when we record in the week. So for a short period of time recently, we've recorded during the day, which does rule quite a few people out if you're at work.
Yeah.
But we're getting more back into evening recording, so more back into some sort of a routine. I'm conscious that we have had a little bit of the same faces on, so we are going to bring some new people in. We've got sitting here now in our next recording, we got Gary Uzzell coming onto the podcast. Gary's not been on before. And then we've a few other names on the reserve list who will be introducing soon. But we've got old favourites. We've got Andrew Barnsley Wood who comes on and brings his own sort of what's the word? Personality to the podcast. Yeah,
But it's also the fact of knowing a lot of people and knowing what particular albums that they like and they don't like. We kind of reach out to certain people that we know that if it's their particular favorite album, or if it's like an event or something that they were really special to them, things like that. So I mean that's, I think, like for instance, like when we had Stephanie and that on, it was like when on charting the single, because it was her first single that she bought, and things like that, where you've got specific events and specific
Yeah.
stuff that we know with people. We'll try and weave that in as well
yeah.
to make it relevant to who comes on board.
Yeah, I recall the episode of Andrew Barnsley Wood attending one of the gigs, and a personality as loud as his shirts and dress sense.
Yeah, he's
We're
a pussycat.
probably talking about the one for the Roundhouse, I think. Yeah, but yeah.
That was it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting, but particularly to those that couldn't attend, like myself. So it was good to get an insight of the rowdiness there. Um, so, I mean, you talked initially about how you started this up. What was the initial idea of Planet Marzipan podcast? And for those that haven't listened to it, that are going to be picking up the web magazine, what was the kind of drivers that you wanted? What did you want to achieve for your personal satisfaction for this weekly podcast?
Well, as we've said, it's just about talking about our favourite bands, really. What
Yeah,
it's actually done for us is made us go back to our collections and re-listen to some things that we probably didn't listen to much recently. If I'm picking Marillion out, I tend to pick live stuff out when I'm just having a listen. I don't go back to the studio albums too much, but this is sort of forcing you to go back and re-listen to things. And quite often you'll hear things that you don't remember. And
I know
it's
one of the first things when we talked about doing the podcast, we were initially thinking about doing it in years. So this year in Marillion. So like you pick like a year like 1990, for instance, and then would it go through everything that happened in the year in Fish and Marillion in the 1990 kind of thing. But it was going to constrict us too much. So I think we just decided to go. Sorry.
it would burn through it.
Oh yeah, burn through stuff.
Burn through
Absolutely
everything
no
in
time.
about 16 weeks, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be gone in no time. But yeah, I mean that's why we kind of went with and we didn't want to do it chronologically because between you and me had already done that, and they've done a great podcast in approaching the um the material from a personal point of view and analyzing the lyrics and analyzing things and stuff that way. And we knew that they'd done a really great job of that. And that, if you're going to do something, you've got to do something different to yourself.
Yeah.
And
Their other angle is Paul's a long-term fan and Sanya was hearing things for the first time. We don't have that angle at all. We both know the stuff inside out. The differences are I mean, in the years prior to we met, are our different gig experiences. And then from when we have met, we've been to a lot of gigs together, but
in the last 30 years.
we're friends for
But
30 years this year.
Well, it's interesting that you have that perspective going back a little bit about you reviewing albums and you're going back to re-listen to them, and it'd be interesting to see what other people that listen to if they do the same because I have done that. I mean, just
yeah,
putting one example, the Yin and Yang reviews you did a few weeks ago, I realized I hadn't listened to them in a long time, and even with the re-release of the Internal Exile and etc., and with some of the 95 re-recordings, now I went back to listen to them, and I do agree with you. Some stand out, and some not quite as good as the originals in my ears. But so I've gone back with you and followed those releases again because, as John has said, it's very tempting to just go for the latest release or your
yeah, yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's why we like to do the deep delves into things. Like when we did
Yeah.
the 2007 convention, we went through the releases with friends and family and stuff like that. And again, people are revisiting things, revisiting the cover versions, revisiting the Strange Engine Live and stuff like that they hadn't done for a while. And it's a good way of just getting the member berries out and thinking, oh, remember when we did this, remember when we did that, and how cool was that? And considering the catalog, is continually expanding and there's new stuff out all the time. It's just good to have a look back and you know I mean, so far what we've even avoided, but I don't know whether we'll have done it by the time this comes out, is we haven't touched the script yet.
No.
Right, there's a classic, isn't it?
And
Particularly the
and
opening.
spoiler alert here, we've got a whole massive episode planned to do pre-script, and there's material there, and we've got there's some interesting snippets of things there that
Oh,
you
wow.
know we've got people involved ready to kind of jump on to do a big year on that, which is going to be fascinating because that's pre my time.
Yeah. We've a
Excellent.
couple of people that we've chatted to already have a wealth of pre-script material. For example, we were shown a snippet of some footage from the band in 1982 playing Glasgow when we went to Holland last week, and the footage is absolutely amazing from 82. There's so much
Right.
stuff out there. There really is. We are kind of Script is the only one of the Fish Ear albums that we haven't reviewed now. Um, so, and there's such a lot to talk about there, isn't there? So we will come back round to that, but we're filling in some of the other gaps that we haven't reviewed so far. We've still got quite a few things to do, but yeah, we treat Fish releases and Marillion releases equally. We're very excited about the new releases. I mean, we're talking to you in October. There are still a number of Marillion related releases planned for the rest of this year. So we've got part 2 at Port Zealand we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
We've got
Strange Engine.
Strange Engine deluxe box set we're looking forward to. And I believe there's a new H Natural release coming out as well before Christmas. So
All right.
yeah,
And hopefully a web Christmas CD or DVD. Who knows?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, we might know, but we're not saying yet.
Spoilers. So the
Sorry,
last few years have produced quite a few releases, and you've sort of touched on this. So they produced quite a few releases and deluxe reissues from both the Marillion and Fish Camp. Some of these have been their best material to date. How how do you balance? I mean, you talked about abandoning the chronological order. So how do you balance reviewing the new releases with obvious immediate interest against some of the older albums, as well as also balancing the separate Fish and Marillion catalogues?
Well, the new releases, they tend to prompt us in. So there are certain titles that we haven't reviewed because we think there's a deluxe coming. This Strange Engine would be a good example of that.
Yeah.
Because
So
that's due out in November, so it'll already be out by the time people get to hear this. And it's absolutely stunning remaster remix. It's cracking.
allegedly.
And allegedly, and allegedly, Craig's alleged favorite of the remix tracks is "Hope for the Future," bizarrely, but you know.
But, but how do we don't really have any sort of hard and fast rule. We might do a couple of Marillion pods and then think we've got to do a Fish.
Because
Or
obviously there's a lot more Marillion material than there is Fish material. So with the Fish material, we tend to have to spread it out a little bit more because you're going to burn through that, so much faster than the modern Marillion material.
the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
interesting episode for me was the transatlantic episode because Craig hates transatlantic. He didn't have lots.
Well, I was going to actually ask you that as well. With over 60 episodes now, do you have any particular highlights or interviews that stand out? And obviously, as a transatlantic fan myself, I found that very interesting, but equally find it interesting that I know that transatlantic is a bit of a love-hate kind of band amongst some of the Marillion community because it is quite heavy prog, and a lot of people veer towards more of the poppy side of the prog. Um, so that's a favourite. Any others?
Of the interviews, this is hard because everybody that we've had on has been great. We've been able to ask them anything we've wanted. Nobody has said anything is off limits. Personally, I really enjoyed the Mark Wilkinson one from in our early days, and Steve Rothery was absolutely lovely to
Oh,
us.
it was lovely. It was
And we
lovely.
had so much positive feedback about the Rothery interview and the way that we asked him the questions. It was brilliant. It was really good. What about you,
I mean,
Craig?
we've had. I mean, it's also I like it when we get to interview our friends, like Andy Rotherham and Fraser and people
Oh
like
yeah,
that. And I think one of the best, some of the best of our friends, some of the best responses we've actually had from people, especially say like the Martin Jacobsby episode that went down an absolute storm with people because he's such, he's one of the nicest guys on the planet. Same with Andy Rotherham. That I can't really pick out too many because they've all been great. And I think the only time I've ever actually been nervous on a podcast episode is when we interviewed H.
It was. It was.
It's the only time I've been everybody else, when we've interviewed Ian and Rothers and things like that. I wasn't nervous for them at all, but for H I was.
That's right. And
well,
with the H episode, we actually ended up asking him more about solo stuff than Marillion.
right. Yeah, I remember the episode. But yeah, he was. It was interesting the way it sort of felt a bit like one of his H diary type
Yeah,
of podcasts
yeah,
blended into yours. It was
yeah.
quite an interesting thing. So obviously you've interviewed. I don't think you've interviewed Pete yet, but
Not yet.
you've interviewed
But
most of the band now.
Peter Mark was the interview.
Yeah. So, and you've also interviewed Marillion manager Lucy Jordash, and she's been on the show a few times,
Lots. It's great.
as well as some of the close Marillion circle. How do you go about arranging those? And is there any arm twisting?
It depends
There's
who
no
it
arm twisting at all. I
is.
just go,
Yeah,
come on.
so it depends who it is. Craig's quite good at arranging, approaching people. It depends. If I know somebody, then I'll ask them outright. If it's one of our if it's one of our sort of circle of friends, we've got quite a few WhatsApp groups now for different pod episodes. and we'll just put something out there. We're going to talk about fear in 3 weeks' time. Is anybody up for that? But Phil, I have to thank Mike Barton, who's helped us out with a couple of episodes. He was our link for H, and he was also our link for Phil Brown.
To remind us, because I'd asked him in Manchester, he'd agreed, yeah. And then and then Phil was saying to Mike, was it like, have they forgotten about us? It's like, no, just hold on.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Um, but we've the only person who has been elusive so far was Fish, because he never got back to us. But everybody else is been great and just been well up for coming on the pod, and everyone seems to have enjoyed it so far.
There's somebody who said you might want to leave this out, Anne or Darren, whoever's editing this. There is somebody who said yes, but they don't want to come on right now, and that's Diz.
Yes, yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
Oh, really?
I know Diz.
Yeah, I know you know Diz. Diz said, "I'll come on, but not yet." Don't know quite what he's waiting for, or whether he's got something going on or what. I don't know.
He may be very busy because he's, as you know, his Pride of Passion uh, thing has kicked off, and he's quite a busy chap. And as you know, he's a social worker, so he's probably got a lot of commitments. And he can be sometimes shy from knowing him. But I've known him for 30 odd years. He was a friend of my brother's, and he came around my house and we were jamming together, and I didn't even know he'd ever been in Marillion at the time. So to find out. And he gave me some Pride of Passion t-shirts, and I ended up tie-dyeing them, and years later threw them away. And if only I'd have kept them now. It'd be worth a fortune in the Steve Wilson fan base.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
I think the handy
so
thing is as well, since we've had so many episodes out now, so if we ask them, and if they're not sure about whether they want to come on or not, they can easily just have a listen to a few episodes and go, my God, I'm not touching that with a shitty stick.
I think the other thing that was not really covered is I'm a bit of a collector, a CD and a vinyl collector. Craig had his moments back in the sort of 80s, but has kind of moved away from that now. But I tend to collect as much as I can. I mean, Darren, you can see that I'm sat in a little box bedroom with everything. The walls are kind of
I can your vinyls, your CDs, and
yeah, yeah. But again, with vinyl, I kind of moved away from that with the advent of CD. So from clutching onwards, I moved away from vinyl and then came back to it in recent years. But it allows me, we have a slot in the review episodes, which Craig really loves, called Just for the Record.
Is it your favorite slot?
My favorite slots, yes.
I was going to ask exactly that. In your episode, you have a slot that you covered, John. It was a question for you, called "Just for the Record," and it's your favourite slot, as you say. I mean, what's driven this? Why do you find that so important to give it a separate bit? And what do you credit to this apparent upsurge in appreciation of vinyl amongst Marillion and Fish fans? If that's probably a wider thing amongst other bands now. There does seem to be a huge upsurge in appreciation for vinyl these days.
I think it's if you're of the mind that you like physical media, um, then vinyl, we remember from our youth, vinyl's got the 12-inch sleeve, and you've got the nice big version of the front cover. You've got all the sleeve notes to pour through. They've been, not to be negative about the Fish remasters, they're lovely, but he's got 10,000 words printed in a booklet that's 5 by 5. You can't read it.
You need an
Yeah.
electron microscope to get it, especially the
Yeah.
colors on
But
backgrounds and stuff like
with
that.
the 12-inch format, you've got it in a nice size, 140, 180 gram vinyls, more substantial than what you used to buy in the past. You feel like you're getting something for your money. Admittedly, the price has gone up, but the quality of the pressings has gone up with it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the later vinyl reissues are works of quality.
Yeah.
I mean, myself personally, I've sort of drifted more towards the CD and the Blu-ray 5.1 surround sounds. even though I've only got two ears, Craig.
And half a
Um,
brain by the time I've got.
but I do appreciate vinyl, and I keep my old ones and I play them on my record player. But yeah, I agree with you, Craig, John. Our eyes aren't getting any better, and some of the text in some of these CDs is tiny, particularly on some of these deluxe remasters where they're cramming in as much information as possible.
That's it. And
But
I know you're a big one for your surround, and me too. That's the other thing that I bore the pants off Craig with. He doesn't do surround sound either, but some of the mixes recently have been amazing. As you know, Darren,
yeah,
and I think Mike Hunter's only getting better at it, which is brilliant for Marillo fans. But the Avril and Andy mixes that they put out for Fish, and also for the Fugazi surround sound, for example, amazing, absolutely brilliant to be right in the middle of the music that you love. It's brilliant.
I agree. Yeah, I mean the latest Fish releases are pretty spectacular, and I think Eternal Exile, the uplift from the original, is astonishing.
Oh yeah. I mean,
It's such a new
just even
record.
the stereo mix of that, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
completely different.
and 13th Star, that's really good. The Atmos mix of that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Anyway, anyone following your podcast will know that your podcasts aren't a sterile encyclopedic recital of fish and marine information. There's a lot of light-hearted, humorous banter, which only adds to the show's interest. I think you mentioned earlier you consider this to be almost sort of a bit like a pre-gig banter, and I can only say that for me that I find that really good, and it makes for the interest. But there's a lot of other podcasts out there, particularly the H1 and the Fish on Fridays, and as you've mentioned, between you and me. When you first started this out, did you deliberately decide to go in a slightly different direction to fill a hole, or was it more about personal satisfaction?
I, I think this is all we can do, if I'm honest. I don't think we could try and be anything else. We didn't want to be false,
And we didn't
but
want to be dry.
we want to be dry. We do in the pub. We take the Mickey out of the band and the fans and the music and
And
ourselves.
each other
Yeah,
constantly.
that's what we do. Yeah. So why would we not do that on the podcast? It's you either get it or you don't get it. If it's not for you, you'll know within 10 minutes. But if you get it, I hope to think it's just like chatting with some of your friends in the pub.
And the thing is it's not scripted. We've got a general idea where we're going, a general idea what we're going to say, what we're going to do, but it's not scripted at all, and it's completely seat of your pants.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Well,
for example, on the review, I always asked Craig how old he was when it came out. I don't know why, but it's just something we do.
And
with
I've
each
got to
episode
start
about
me
an hour
maths.
long.
Sorry?
Yeah, with I was going to say with each of your episodes is typically about an hour long, and I was going to say that must require. I was going to ask if that requires a lot of preparation, and how far do you plan in advance?
All the preparation really is just looking back on, we'll re-listen to stuff, or we'll rewatch stuff. And half the time John goes to me, how the hell do you remember half that stuff? That's
Well,
how
but
take the Mickey McCreagypedia, isn't it?
I'll get out separated out and reread a section of separated out if it relates to that, or if this, I might look online, see if I can find gig reviews. I'll look for set lists. I'll look for tour dates. So we try to be as factual as we can. We do occasionally make mistakes, and if I spot it, I mention it to Craig so he can take it out in the edit. And if I don't, then it goes out and people tell me we've made a mistake.
Which doesn't happen very often.
But it's yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always feel a little bit underprepared when we sit down to record, and then we record and it flies by, and Craig goes, "What were you worried about?" Yeah.
And I
So,
think the longest time taken to do is to do the edit.
who does the edit, Craig?
Craig,
Is it you?
Craig.
Oh yes, I get that fun job.
I know when you
So
do review an album, you usually review all the different releases and sometimes associated live versions and the front row club versions. I mean,
and the tours and
that
things
must
like
take
that.
a lot of knowledge to remember them. But equally, as you said earlier, you involve a group of 4 or 5 sometimes. How do you
Yeah.
coordinate it? Or do you just everybody go in all guns blazing, reviewing everything?
I try and host the
Heard,
episode,
you tried herd the kittens.
try and herd the kittens, which is sometimes it's okay, and at other times people talk on top of each other. It depends what we're talking about. Um, we've got some regulars like James Levy comes on, and James is the band's
Treasure
art,
trove.
so he's got incredible knowledge that nobody else would get. He's got better knowledge than the band of some of this stuff. We're lucky enough to have had Tim Sidwell on some episodes. So obviously Tim's the band's
Yeah.
videographer. He brings a different angle to it as well. Um, it's yeah, it's not.
Well, Tim has had some very interesting podcasts with you. That's, but
Yeah,
he's a local boy to me as
lovely.
well because he's based in Stourbridge or Wolverhampton, I think, and as is Anne.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Anne Bond teaches my director's children, and I live in Birmingham at the moment and did live in Aylesbury at one point. It's a very small world.
It is. It is, especially in Marillion world. I mean, Anne and Tim have been friends for a long time, haven't they? But yeah.
Yeah. So I may have met him long time ago without realizing because he talked about the Lucy Jordache meetups when she first took over, and I attended them. But for the life of me, I can't remember who else was there. But yeah. Um, so in regards to the name Planet Marzipan, obviously many Marillion fans will recognise this as a song, the name of the song from Happiness Is the Road. What was what was the inspiration about using this as the title of the podcast, and were there other names
There are
considered?
other names considered, but I'm going to let Craig explain why we have got this one.
Yeah, we were gonna just basically go along with the continuation of the Cakey Boys thing, but it was a case of, well, people don't know really who the Cakey Boys were or anything like that. And we thought, well, Planet Marzipan, cakey, cake adjacent kind of thing.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Getting the
You need
connection
to
now.
explain why the Cakey Boys were called the Cakey Boys, because there's no backstory to what you've just said.
well, the Cakey Boys obviously was our little group comprising of me, myself, and I, and you, and Mark Kennedy, and Dave Dobby, and Mikey K. Because Mikey was my business partner at the time, and we had a big cake empire, which we used to do cake decoration, sugarcraft, and all that kind of stuff, which closed this year after 26 years. And so we kept it within the cakey sphere without it being too obvious.
And
And
Yeah,
Planet
well, I was going
Marzipan
to
just
write
seemed
and
perfect.
complain. I
Oh, come
thought
on.
I'd be tuning into something about almond-based confectionery or something to do
Well,
with
we can do that
Nutella,
for you.
but
do an
It's
offshoot, Darren.
doable.
If there's a
nothing.
market for it, we'll do an offshoot. There's not a problem.
Um, so uh, you're going to have to tell the readers of the web, and it wouldn't be a proper Planet Marzipan podcast if we didn't ask about genius or bollocks.
Oh, here we go. Now,
Okay.
we can say that that was an invention back in, was it 2000 and was it pre the first convention, Genius or Bollocks, John, if I remember right? And try to explain that to the Americans is usually a
Well,
nightmare.
no. Basically, a friend of ours, Dave Dobby, who is one of the original Cakeys, invented this game that we would talk about in the queue for the gigs, and it's basically genius or bollocks. So a song or an album can only be genius or bollocks. It can't be anything in between. Can't
There's
debate it.
no shades of grey.
No shades of grey, and you can't debate it. So when we're feeling a bit mischievous, we'll do a round of genius or bollocks for an album review. Um,
And people complain if we miss it out as well. And
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we forget about it. Sometimes
Every
it's just
time, and then we get complaints that we haven't done it. That's the most irreverent part of the pod, because I realise these songs are the band's babies, but to dismiss a song as bollocks, it seems a bit
Well, to be fair, you've had Lucy Jordash and Stephanie both, and Georgina both all jump in
oh, they
and
love
name a few
They love
songs as
Gigi
bollocks.
Flavour.
yeah, yeah.
They've all got their views. They don't love them all.
Maybe that's a convention idea. We can get the band to do Genius or Bollocks on stage.
Good idea. That's a
Convoluted.
spoiler.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's it. It's quite good when you get things that people want to debate and you have to go, nope, can't. Is it genius or is it bollocks?
So you've reviewed many Fish and Marillion albums now, and with a 40-year back history of music, but from both Fish and Marillion, do you think you ever run out of material to keep this podcast fresh, inspiring, and current?
I never said it was fresh, inspiring, and current, Darren. Thank you for that. Yeah, at some point, I suppose we might. I don't know, but there's so many angles that we can cover. There's so many things that we can talk about. You know, we want to do something on the very first residential weekend. And, there's so many things to talk about.
And there's so many people
Hauntings.
who've been involved. Yeah, so many people have been involved over the years who will come on and chat. Plus, there's other fans' perspectives and stuff as well. So there's so many places to go. And sometimes, John has to pull me back because I'm chomping at the bit for to dive onto stuff and get further ahead. But it's like, whoa.
And as it's grown, we've found that some albums have become 2 episodes long. So we talk about it more in depth now than we
Did we do
probably
when we
in
started?
the very early days.
Yeah, I believe Afraid of Sunlight was about 3 episodes. And so at the beginning of this interview, you talked about Misplaced Childhood only being the one, and you said that warranted a further
We will
retrospective
we will
review.
go back, and I think,
Clutching as well.
for the anniversary next year for 2025, the 40th anniversary, I think we'll revisit Misplaced. It absolutely deserves it. And there's so much to talk about around that album as well.
Yeah, I understand that probably generated quite a bit of listens. But I mean, you review a lot of albums, and you've also done some of the side projects, as you mentioned, like Transatlantic. Do you find when you review some of the side projects like Transatlantic or the Steve Rothery Band gigs that they have as much interest on your podcast? Do you find the figure that your listens go up and down depending on the topic?
They do, but not massively.
We do, and there's not really any trend to it. We've one of our best listened to episodes recently was the roundup of the fish box sets. We did
Right.
a kind of commit. Chris, who does our images for us. Hello, Chris. You're a big part of the team, and we must mention you.
Oh yeah. Chris
We
Oliver, we would be nowhere without him,
does the
absolutely,
image
because he's great too. Because so just briefly mentioning the artwork as well, is that Chris does such good jobs of tweaking things and just planet Marzipaning things, and he's great.
Well, we did at my suggestion, we did a picture of fish looking like he worked in a fish shop holding fish and chips up. I think that got a few extra listeners in for that. But that was one of our biggest episodes recently. But obviously the interviews go really well, particularly if the band are on. One other thing that we haven't said about Lucy, actually, she's got into the habit on the chart in the singles now of, very much like H does at his gigs, reciting the lyrics for us. And if you've never heard Lucy recite the lyrics to Freaks, then you need to listen to the podcast.
I have heard her recite some of the lyrics for some of the songs. I can't remember if I've listened to Freaks or not, but it'd certainly be worth a listen. But you haven't had a chart in the single episode for a while.
Sorry?
You haven't had a charting the single episode for a while,
No,
have
we
you?
haven't. There's so much other stuff to talk about at the minute. Charting the single for the next one will be for the clutching singles, and they're mini pods, so they're around about half
For
your
20 minutes, yeah.
so about 25, 30 minutes, the mini pods, but we put them out together. So we'll do Incommunicado and Sugar Mice and put them out together at the same on the same day. So you're
Yeah,
not
and you organise them per
there's
album, don't you?
not losing out. Yeah, there's enough for you to get to work.
Yeah, yeah. Correct me. I think your podcast is free, but all the older episodes are still available for those picking this up and thinking I want to go back and revisit some of the older episodes. That's correct, isn't it?
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're also on YouTube. If you just want to listen to them on YouTube, they're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, they are just audio only though, aren't they? They're not
Yes, yeah.
video. So
Yeah, we
for
don't want to
this,
scare
I can
people.
see you, you can see me. But normally when I tune in, I'm in my zoned in my headphones, walking up and down a canal or into town for my lunchtime breaks. But I've never seen a. It's the first for me
Yeah,
too.
we do actually have the video footage for every episode. We may do something with that down the line. There's some episodes where we've got people in the pages, which we wouldn't do, but we'll see.
Well, in terms of the interview for the web magazine, I'm sort of comfortable. We've covered quite a lot here. I was going to ask if you've got any big plans that anything different for 2025 for the podcast at all. I mean, we've got a busy year coming up. You've got the Road to the Isles tour. You've got some
Yeah, I mean
deluxe releases and
we've just done the Road to the
adventure.
Isles when we're in Utrecht. We will do some specials on Fisher's final gigs. We're going to be recording a lot across in Port Zealand when we're there, so there'll be episodes coming for that.
And that's the
Um,
final Port Zealand, of course, isn't it?
yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of people that we know who are going there, so we'll make some good episodes over
And
there while we're there. So that'll be cracking.
something around the Leicester weekend as well,
Yep.
because there are lots of tribute bands playing now at the Leicester weekend.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to that one, so we'll
yeah,
catch up there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'll get the rest of the band on
Brilliant
next
gig.
year as well.
And yeah, we hopefully will collect the set and get Pete and we'll get Mark on. Um, but yeah, more of the same, really. I mean, we at the end of last year, we did a review of 2023 and we went through by calendar month with what had happened in the year leading up to the end of the year. And that worked well. And we'll do the same again for 2024. As we approach Christmas, we'll have an episode out for you, part one for Christmas week and part two for New Year week, where we review the year.
And
Excellent.
then hopefully by the time we get into 2026, we might actually have a new album by then.
Fingers crossed.
I'm not
Fingers
holding
crossed.
Not holding your breath.
it.
So I think to wrap up the web interview, if you're okay to do that for the moment, and we can progress on the other. I think it would be nice just to thank both of you for your time, as well as all the past contributors of the show. That made it such an enjoyable journey so far, and given us a little bit more insight and appreciation of everything in the world of Fish and Marillion. I personally have enjoyed it, and I look forward to along with the H podcasts, which have now gone bi-weekly. This is the one I listen to the most now. So thank you very much. And I think just to be cheeky, as you say in your podcast, it's good night from me. It's good night from you. And go on in, Craig, say it.
Gotta
Take
take
care.
care and stay alive.
Hey.
Hey.
So I believe you've got some questions for me, haven't you?
Yeah, we have got questions for you, Darren. So carrying on for our Planet Marzipan listeners. There's quite a few things that you're infamous for in Marillion land. So do you want to tell us? We always ask people who the first time they're on our pod how they got into the band. So how did you get into the band?
Oh, well, I come from Aylesbury, and I went to a school in Aylesbury called the Grange, which, bizarrely enough, is where Pete Trouse and Robin Bolt went to school in the years preceding me. But in the year that I was about third or fourth year, Kaylee came out, and I'd started learning to play guitar, and we were choosing songs to play in our school band. And Kay was one of them, suggested by one of the band members, the guitarist Richard Bentley, who lost through the ether of time. But he said, "Why don't we play Kay?" And I quite liked it. It was quite a poppy song. And the bass player in the band said, "Oh, you've got to listen to the album Misplaced Childhood." So we did. We played Kay. It must have been dreadful because I didn't have a digital delay pedal. It was, dun dun dun, and anybody heard a school band, probably dreadful. But it wasn't until I went to college and met a few people, and Clutching at Straws came out, and I bought that pretty much on the day it was released. And I thought, oh, this is nothing like Misplaced Childhood, but it pretty much grew into me pretty quickly. And I think it's probably my favourite Marillion album to date. And I was fortunate enough to go and see Marillion with Fish at Wembley. And so this was my new band. I was so into it. I went back and bought all the vinyls and the singles and the picture discs and the interview discs and it was brilliant. It was all going swimmingly until I saw an article in the Sun. My mum used to buy it, and it said Fisher's left Marillion. And I was like, no, not another band I'm into that's split up. And bizarrely enough, about a week later. I went to a pub in Wendover, which is a little village outside Aylesbury, which I believe Steve Roveley used to live there. And I went to see a band called Jadis, who have also got connections with Marillion. And in walks Mark Kelly. And I went straight up to him and said, "Look, I've just heard this horrible rumour that Fisher's left Marillion. It can't be true." He goes, "Oh, I'm afraid it is, mate. Oh, I'm really sorry." I was devastated. And I ended up watching the band, and Steve Roveley walked in. He stood about two people away from me, and there I was, feeling a bit broken-hearted that my favourite band had split up. And it was only a year after later that I heard that Hooks in You come out, and I was like, wow. And that just blew me away. It was like a fresh Marillion. And so that's really how I got into Marillion.
Where did you first see them live?
I saw them first at the Wembley Arena.
Sorry,
They
you
they
did.
played
I beg your pardon. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they played two nights, and I saw them the first night, which I think was a Thursday. I can't remember. It might have been a Wednesday or Thursday, but I've still got the ticket stub somewhere. And the night after was some royal show where they had some royalties, and I think they had
It was
members from Iron
Prince
Maiden
Edward,
and that.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
and
Yeah,
Prince
that,
Edward.
they had, Bruce Dickinson was on with them the night after, wasn't he? And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it was broadcast on the radio as well.
I was at the same night as you were, Darren. I was about 3 rows back. I got Web UK tickets. I
Oh
was
wow.
brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you for that. You have, as I say, you've a few sort of infamous facts about you. You've played on stage with the band at Swap the Band.
That's right. I used to play in a band called Lorien, and when that's dissolved, me and my mate formed a duo called Lazy Jane, and we used to play Kay Lee and many other Marillion things in the set, such as Splintering Heart. And I went to Pontins in 2002, and I thought about entering Swap Band, but I never did. And then one of my mates, Adrian Holmes, he got up and played, and I was like, God, I wish I'd entered now. So I made it my mission the following year to enter a tape, and I sent in a few live recordings of us playing live, and I got an email saying you've been selected to play Kaylee. At first, I was like, oh, I wanted to play Spirit and Heart or something a bit more challenging, but in retrospect, Kay Lee was probably the best one because if you ever speak to anybody, oh, I play Kay, oh, I know that song. But if anybody's ever seen it, and it is available on YouTube, my little clip, I sort of twizzled up the solo a little bit because I thought, what's the point of playing it like for like?
Note
So
for
I had it a
note, yeah.
few times and jazzed it up a bit. But it was so rewarding, and to play in front of 2,500 people and on stage with, I mean, it is everybody's childhood dream, isn't it, to play with your favorite band? And that actually happened with me. And from that, I made so many friends that played on the same day. There's Michelle Aragon, Richard Egan, and stuff. And some of those end up playing again, as you're probably aware, the Swappers 11 album that came out during lockdown, which was a culmination of various members of Swap the Band. And I was involved in that with some of those people from my year as well. So that was pretty special. Yeah.
There's a Swappers 11 album, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, Swappers 11. I got contacted by Louis Alvin from Brazil, and also there was Gary from
Gary
Scotland.
Foley. No, Gary
Newcastle,
Foley.
Newcastle.
Yeah, he's one of
Gary
us. He's one
Foley.
of
Yeah.
us. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So they emailed me and say, look, we've been and Alessandro from Italy. Yeah, they said they were putting together an album of original materials by this Swappers 11. I think they'd been on the cards for ages, but just never managed to get it finished. But I think with with the unfortunate lockdown, it gave everybody a bit more spare time on hand. So they emailed me and said, look, we want to finish this off and want to invite some other people and we've seen you. Would you be interested in putting a few guitar solos on and contributing? And I said, yeah. So I added a couple of guitar solos and some weird fade-ins and a guitar duo there and dual. And it was great and it sounded absolutely amazing when I got the mixes through. And as you know, when they had the Marillion Couch Convention, Swappers 11 were chosen as one of the virtual support acts, and they performed there. And as part of the release of that album, we also recorded some acoustic versions, including Transatlantic's "We All Need Some Light." So they put quite a bit of a marketing campaign and published little video clips of each of the players and the acoustic versions we did. And there's still a few that we've produced that haven't yet been produced. And I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day now, but it was quite an exciting thing to do during lockdown.
And is
So
it
yeah, it was
just a
quite
matter
special.
of Googling Swappers 11 and that'll take you to a link for that?
There's lots of stuff on Swappers 11. Yeah, that's 11 with a 1-1, so Swappers 1-1. And if you go on there, there's a official website. But if you go to YouTube, there's loads of clips there, and you can find "We All Need Some Light" and all the tracks there. But I was on a track called initially it was called "Full Spectrum of Colors," but I think on the album it was just shortened in the end to just "Spectrum." But it's good and yeah, so it's quite an interesting collection of music there. Yeah, and I've never heard of anything like it in the world, but
No,
it's a first, I
no.
think.
Oh, brilliant. You've also designed an album cover for Marillion. Just
I
hold it up.
did.
This is audio, but I'm holding it up. So the what year was it? 2003. EMI put out a single disc best of Marillion.
In Europe.
Yeah, but there's a bit of a backstory to that actually. Um, I uh, I think it all started with there was when Lucy first did her little jaunt around the UK to meet various members of Marillion fans and find out what we're all into. We met and I became friends with Lucy somewhat and she asked for people to put together collections of music for one of the conventions. Now, prior to that, I'd a few of us at these little gatherings said, "Why don't we have a Marillion festival, a Marillion convention, or something like that?" And so what we did is we arranged this one in Stourbridge, and we called it the UK Garden Party 2001. And so I produced a poster which was sort of based on the film 2001 with the monolith on the moon and I had the jester walking into a door into the monolith and produced this kind of poster and t-shirt campaign and there was we got John Young band to play there. There was Skyline Drifters and a few other choice acts at the time. And on the back of that, I bumped into John Collins, who produced the Separated Out book, and he
Yes.
said, "I really like your poster here, and I'm doing a Marillion book, and it's going to be hopefully authorized by the band, and I'm going to get lots of people to contribute. So it's not just going to be autobiography; it's going to get fans to contribute as well." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh," he goes, "Would you like to do the album cover? Because I like what you've done here." I said, "Okay, that's great, brilliant." And so I did that, and because he said he was going to have some of the regular Marillion fans in it, I thought, oh, that'd be the usual suspects. I know who they'll be, and that gave me the idea to have the usual suspects lineup. If you recall the film with the criminals lined up against the height chart, and I thought we could have maybe some of the fans lined up against that. And I know it sounds a bit of a divergent trip here, but it will come around full circle
No,
in a
it's
minute.
fine. I know where you're going with it. You're okay.
So I thought about that, and I thought, oh, I've got a better idea. Why don't we have the lineup with various icons from Marillion albums? So you've got the Jester, you've got the Torch, but you've got Misplaced Childhood Boy, you've got Torch, you've got the .com girl, you've got the
Got Barry.
fire girl from Radiation, and then you've got Barry, and then you've also got on the laptop there's the Brave face just faintly in there as a bit of a kind of hidden gem. And so that came about, and he was really chuffed with that from right from the idea. And on the back of that, Lucy then contacted me and said, "Look, I've seen your stuff, and you did this CD cover for this mix." Now EMI have contacted me, and they said this was on the back of, I don't know if you recall, the Best of Both Worlds, which was a two CD release. One was a Fish CD, and one was the H era CD, and it had the eye on one side of the Carl Glover cover, and on the other side of the Mark Wilkinson kind of spiral. He said, but the problem is that the two CDs don't sell very well in Europe, and we want a single edition for EMI. And he said, I've seen your cover, I like it. Would you mind doing, do you fancy having go doing a single version cover for us based on that? I said, well, great. So I set about doing this album cover using, some may recognise that the view is down the Claw Gallery, which is designed by an architect called James Sterling, and it's in London against Claw Gallery. And so I basically took that, and the original design had the radiation girl with a flame coming out of her head, which caused shadows going down the corridor. And then in each of the picture frames, I'd replaced all the works of art from Turner, etc., to Mark Wilkinson's masterpieces and some of the other stuff. And there was a jester in the background. But Lucy come back to me and said, "Look, that's great, but we can't have the flaming girl on there because that's a Castle album, and we're not allowed to use anything on this mix for the EMI. So can you replace it?" So I scratched my head for a bit. And I thought, "Oh God, what am I going to do?" So I actually changed her for the Barry, and so what you see now is a slight alteration from the original concept where you've got Barry. But as you look at the album, there's lots of little concepts and pictures in there. You've got the carnation superimposed there. So the idea was to sort of imply that it's a compilation album through all the mixes, all the songs on there. There's reference to the album,
Really good.
and
It's really nicely done. Yeah.
yeah, and about 6 or 7 months later, I got a calendar come through the post with that on the front cover. So the Marillion calendar had that on the front, and for those that also purchased the gold disc, they also used that image as the center sticker for the gold personalized gold disc as well. So I was quite chuffed. It
Brilliant.
was
That's
quite
a good claim to fame, isn't it? That. Yeah, I mean, the sleeve for separated out is fantastic as well. Um,
In fact,
yeah,
I think you might have a different version there to me because my version's got a great big sticker on the front. Oh no, you might not. With it's got some kind of copyright software on it. Yeah,
printed on the sleeve on this one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in
So that
the
was
EMI doing the copy controlled CDs, so you couldn't copy them allegedly. But no, that's great. That's fantastic.
so yeah. So I was very very proud of that to come from a fanboy in Aylesbury to suddenly doing an album cover for Marillion and a book jacket and a convention poster and play on the band all within a year or two. It was just all and everything all at once, and it was just fantastic. And it sort of brought me into the fold of the wider Marillion community, and I've got to know many people that year because of Swap the Band and that. And I've never looked back. It's been brilliant fun.
See, and I when I said I wanted to interview you, you said, I don't know what I'm going to say. Well, there you go. They're things that most people can't say. They haven't done an album cover and, haven't played with a band. It's fantastic.
All because of playing Kaylee at school.
Yeah. Do you still play now, Darren? You still play guitar now?
I don't do the band so much. Occasionally I play and get invited to play on things. I still play at home, obviously, but I'm an architect these days and very busy with kids and family and life commitments and stuff. So a lot of this stuff has to take a back seat, which is unfortunate. But I do still play guitar. I do enjoy it still, and I consider myself to be pretty good. But if all of a sudden life changed and I lost my job, I could perhaps go back into music. Who knows?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. If I had to ask you for your favorite Marillion album, could you tell me what it is?
Ooh, I've got to say, I do love a lot of the new H stuff. I think so. From the early stuff, I think it's probably Clutching at Straws. But and Brave is amazing, as is Fraser. It's very difficult, and on any given day it might be a different choice. But Clutching at Straws, I think possibly because the age I was, the time it came out, and it was my. Although I've known Misplaced Childhood, I think Clutching at Straws was the next stage up, and I think that was just amazing. And that's always been a favourite. And I could put that on any day of the week and still enjoy it as much as I did when it first came, when I used to walk to college and back with my headphones on.
And a favourite gig?
Well, I think it's got to be one or two actually. It's when I played Wembley and I saw Fish for the first time, and that was the first one, and I couldn't speak for 2 days because I was singing my heart out.
I was going to say
And
you lost your voice for singing too hard. Yeah.
yeah, and obviously the Royal Albert Hall was pretty spectacular. But equally, Brave was pretty good when I saw that on tour. But Royal Albert Hall was just amazing. You know, in that venue with that light show. I mean, they chucked everything in the kitchen sink at that. You got the little quartet or the little mini orchestra, the lasers, the back show, the hall, the finger lights, the set. It was just awesome. It was just pretty spectacular. And plus, it was all recorded, and so I've got it on DVD, on Blu-ray to relive forever. And in fact, I only had it on yesterday night and was enjoying it because it come up on all the Facebook feeds of being 7 years. I thought, oh, I'm going to have to listen to that.
We've done a little bit of research on that recently because we're about to get together with some fans and talk about the fans angle on that. But by the time folks hear this, they'll have heard that.
It'll be long out.
I've heard that already. Well, look, Darren, thank you very much for coming on.
No, it's been a pleasure, actually. I didn't anticipate I'd ever be invited onto one of these. I didn't think I'd have anything worthwhile to contribute. And it was only through Anne Bond asking me to interview you that we've now had you interviewing me. So that's got to be a first.
And we're going to ask you to come back on and do something in the future as well, if you would.
Yeah, of course, anytime. You know, if I can do it, I would do. And yeah, you know, I know the format. I've listened to enough shows, and I find them really
the
enjoyable.
score. Totally irreverent.
I mean,
promise we'll do Genius Hobolics if you come back on.
that's a deal. That's brilliant.
Well, look, thank you for coming on, Darren. It's been great to speak to you. It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Take care.
And Darren, you can do this bit.
And stay alive.
Hey!
Hey.
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out marillion.com, fishmusic.scot for all the